Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of Literary Nights with Unsolicited Press. Before we start, I want to remind everyone to smash the like button, follow, subscribe, and do whatever you can so that you know where to find us in our subsequent shows. Also, if you are from wherever you're watching, you can leave a comment or ask a question, and we will see it in real time from wherever you're watching. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We have a special poet with us tonight. Her name is Allison Carb Sussman, and she is going to be reading from her forthcoming book called Sun King. She is the previous author of a book called, let me just show it to you. It is called Black Wool Cape. Both of these books are poetry books. And as you can see from our Chiron, if you want to buy her books or any other books from Unsolicited Press, you can go to their website and write Literary Nights to take 20% off of the cost of your order. So, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And thank you, Amy, a wonderful poet, for joining us this evening and for sharing your work with us. So tell us about your book forthcoming in 2027.
Okay, I'm going to be, well, hopefully it will come out in 2027 because it's a little delayed, but um, it's called The Sun King, and it involves Louis XIV and his menagerie, his courtiers, his mistresses, all his rowdy bunch, and also a his daughter Louise Francoise, and another young woman growing up in the 20th century called Alicia, and they all come together in The Sun King, which is very short chapbook, but it's packed with a lot of stuff. So, you know, I hope you'll stick around and get a copy and read it eventually when it comes out.
It sounds wonderful. So we're very anxious to hear your poetry.
Great. Well, the first couple of poems I'm going to read are from The Sun King, and I'll tell you about the last couple of poems in down the road. Okay, this one is called Absent Dad, 2017. My hand cups your shoulder like a wet starfish. I stand close to your harmless body, place ice slivers on your cracked lips. I hold your dry fingers, witness the nurse who barely looks at you, wiping your shit-stained bedsheet. I touch my lips to your creased forehead, clutching a towel to rub your cold, mixed up feet. The dutiful daughter, crowned with seaweed, ever your servant. You whisper your final word, which is, believe it or not, guilt. Maybe not for the defilements themselves, but for the divorce, what you thought kept us apart. Now, old Navy man, I am left transfixed on the beach, puzzling over the line in the sand we drew between us. And this one is called Bust of King Louis XIV. Ton Majesté, forgive me for knocking into you. One can't tell kings from statues nowadays. Is that a tutu you're wearing? Shall we dance a pas de deux? Are those gloves yours or your mistress's? You have so many gloves and mistresses. Who can possibly tell? Your chiseled marble face looks down from on high, gloats at me and other passers-by. Dad, did you ever love me? Your hairpiece looms large, absurdly puffed, with those darling spit curls flouncing haughtily over your shoulders and chest. Who knows how many lice and bedbugs have crawled underneath? Is there lapdog poop under that smelly headdress? What about gooey chocolate or jellied semen? Dad, just how naked are you under that wig? Is your hair sweaty, plastered to your head? I'm just Joey, Mom told me you often said. Dad, your stubbly chin, your hands brutal and tender. How could you betray my innocent trust? I accept now, but I cannot forgive. Hazily, I see you in a dark suit, crying soundlessly as you herded us kids through a Westchester cemetery to find the gravestone of a dog you never met. Louis, beneath the wig, your lips curve up in a smug smile. Après tout, you're the Sun King, in command of all these inferiors, among them your daughter Louise Francoise. Perhaps you have just bedded her mother, Madame de Montespan? Or does your dreamy look and smile tell of your blood-soaked wars, waged from a chaise longue? Your robed arm sweeps out grandly above your pedestal, as if you were issuing a royal decree. You thought Bernini crafted a flattering bust, didn't you? Don't you know artists can see when a king has a moldy baguette wrapped around his neck like a flea collar? And this one is a little more bawdy than the last one, but it's called Keyhole Conversation between Madame de Montespan and King Louis XIV. Oh, Louis, where's my whalebone corset? Are you using it for your personal plaisir again? Shall I whip off my panties and give you a sniff? Would you like to lick them too? Now, don't get all cross-eyed because I know you so well. I'm just pulling your old tailbone. Louis le Grand, I may be un peu déshabillé in this portrait, but consider, I have just risen from rumpled bed sheets after a nuit d'amour. Mommy, my bed smells like fish. Daddy told me fish have seeds. Seeds can make a tiny poupette, can't they? I won't eat my string beans unless you take out the seeds. But let's not argue about dinner. Yes, I know the drill. I show up before you. Don't you note how your courtiers wag their tongues like lapdogs' tails when my breasts fall out of my bodice? Well, my wit will destroy the green-mouthed lot of them. Don't forget, I am this maison's supreme chat. What's that? You're going to sit next to Madame de Maintenon, my daughter Louise Francoise's governess? Sweetie, you are trampling my heart. Now wait a minute. What has that horrible bitch got that I haven't? I may not have her grand age, but I can beat her at a game of chess. Oh, Lou, you drive me crazy. Mommy, you're the crazy one. Trying to jump out the window so Daddy would race downstairs and catch you and not leave us. I know, Louis. We'll have a menage a trois. Then, darling, you'll see who's better at making love, me or that pool. I'll go over your entire body with my tongue first. After that, I'll folk you silly. You'll see. I'll spin cartwheels around that femme's flabby flesh. And the next two poems are from a work in progress, which may or may not become a book, but it's looking very likely that it is. So this one is called The Blood of Women Fish. In some countries, they sew vaginas shut so girls and women can't feel pleasure. We women stand braying on hind legs and bleed month after month, between months. We carry our blood in clay jars on our heads. We must keep going, not cry out. And those of us without mutilated sexes, do we really get pleasured? If I weren't so scared, I'd mutilate my flesh, burn it. Yet I burn with rage at women who defeat themselves, make themselves into pain devils beside men, and destroy their souls. At night, the tree is practically in our bedroom window. Its leaves hiss in the wind. The dark has made them invisible. I feel the tree's leaves touching my face, beckoning me to go with them, dark and impermanent, a conspiracy of black, those leaves burning my heart, my black soul. It's raining. I stand by the window, listening to the soft suck of the wind. Suddenly, I remember the people I left sitting in the cafe and think, I'm going to die not so long from now, not so far from here. And I lean against the window and ponder its tangled reflections. I go down through the streets, which descend like strips of black velvet in a sea of leather. I see all kinds of women fish swimming in packs. The women fish dart in and out of each other, their hues filling the streets. By century's end, there will be no fish. The sea will boil. The fish that depend on it will die, and I will have breasts like deflated balloons and a Brillo pad for hair. Louise Glick, Ann Carson, Kim Adonisio, their words stalk the grass of my memories and dreams. Their words shimmer in the moonlight of my indifference and open me up like a seed pod. They drip pollen from flower to bee to flower, fertilizing the egg. All I want is to dance among surfaces of rough cut ropes, letting them chafe my cheeks. All I want is to stand in an electrified field before I die. This is what I crave. I don't have to say anything. Like dead souls rising, the poems crackle and blaze forever. And can I just take a break for a minute?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay,
Some unexpected poetry for sure.
This last one is called Ghosts in the Pensacola Airfield. I will never understand the lonely drone of a plane. I will never understand the grassy airfields of my Florida childhood, the grassy airfields in Aruba, the mechanics in orange jumpsuits and bare brown feet, waggling those light sticks in their fingers. Forgive me for hovering around the wings, for roaming through hangars where planes dream in pairs. Flaps, rudders, tails, propellers, planes with cone noses and windows lighting up like expectant eyes. Her father pulls her by the hand out of the hangar. The girl breaks loose, runs into the wire fence, then onto the airfield, glancing back at her father's oncoming shadow. The girl lays on her back in the grass and waits for a rescue plane to land. The milkweeds erect, saluting her wriggling toes, her glasses thrown hard aside. She wants to see the blur of blue angels in midsummer, the whole sky rushing forth, streaked with pure clouds. Me alone playing cat's cradle, a field of yellow tulips, the aircraft aloft or parked, rusting in grassy corners, collapsed hangars, rolled concertina wire fences. I look for those fences everywhere. The memories grow tall over bungalow sunflowers, sunsets. The detritus of a Florida childhood, Daddy's Navy hat, his blue ribbon medals, a squishy doll, and my brother's cotton dog Muna, Mom's red lipstick tubes and ripped nylons, baby pajamas with plastic feet. I read in Mother's letters of her disappointment in the baby with the mouse brown hair. Me in Mom's straw laundry basket as she pulled clean, dry trousers and shirts off the line and piled them on me. Now, both my cat, Tashi, and I love the smell and feel of clean laundry. To roll in it, absorb its heat, what passed for Mom's love. This knob-kneed girl lying in the weeds of the deserted airfield, fleeing her father, the hunter, trailing her mother, who fled our backyard clothesline in the Pensacola rain, her letters pressed to her chest. Never again will I lie helpless in a basket, carried around by others. Never again will I put my trust in a sullen blonde. When you lay dying, Mom, I was still roped to you. The cord kept emerging, even though I was grown. My inmost animals, the Cheshire cat and the starfish, fought their way out of your stomach. Shall we be at peace at last, Mom, now that I'm becoming myself, my starfish limbs floating in my own amniotic sac, regenerating one by one? And I'm finished. um, if you have any questions, if
I
anybody,
have plenty of questions because
uh,
now is our Q&A. Um, First, can you tell us a little more about the Sun King? Because what the poetry that you read from there sounds intriguing. It talks about the king, the daughter, the mother of the daughter, which is also not the queen, um, as far as I know. So, what inspired you to focus on that French king?
well, I was doing an in class exercise with Jeffrey Nutter, who's a wonderful poet and teacher. And he had us go around in the Met and look at certain objects and write about them. And I picked a statue of one of the lords and ladies, one of the lords in uh, King Louis's court, which I sort of found that out later on doing research. And so I became interested in King Louis. And also, I had a very good friend who said, "Why don't you write another one? Or why don't you write five more? Or why don't you write 10 more?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I could barely write one." And then I thought, well, let's see. So I did. And it became this little booklet, The Sun King.
So is any of that like steeped in history? Did he really have an illegitimate daughter
Oh,
named Louise?
definitely. Most of this is steeped in history. Yes.
Okay.
He had a very licentious court life. He had at least he had several mistresses, but his two favorites were Madame de Maintenon and Madame de Montespan, and he married Madame de Maintenon, and that all of these women came with children of their own, which he made his, but it was quite a scene at that court. As I was doing my research, I was thinking, how could anyone grow up in such a milieu and not come out very strange?
Yeah, I bet. I also really love the one with the statue where the wig, where the daughter is talking to the father, and what's underneath his wig, because I have known for a long time that those lords and ladies weren't very clean because at the time the Europeans thought it was unhealthy to bathe. So, and then Alexander Pope's rape of the lock
Hmm.
refers to the lice that shared the blood of the lovers. And so how did you come up with that? I mean, because that's pretty visceral, the filth that's underneath that wig.
I just tried to think of the most outrageous thing I could about these people, and I just thought, well, what's under that wig? What's under that? What's under those shirt sleeves? What's under that? What's under your dress? You know.
It's funny because I suspect you might think it's outrageous, and we, in our 21st century perspective, might think it's outrageous. But that was probably life in general, like not unusual from anybody else
Hmm.
for them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that much about them outside of the what I did for the book, but they certainly were. I mean, they were very, very licentious. I mean, they were really sophisticated, really jaded, and they just hopped from wife to wife, husband to husband, lover to lover, and it was quite a scene.
And I guess everybody shared the children, which is kind of odd because being a king, his children will have been afforded more benefits than his legal, legitimate children would have been afforded more benefits than illegitimate ones. But I guess it didn't
Exactly.
matter to him.
Exactly. I mean, some of the children were actually his and his mistresses. Some of them weren't. Uh, it just depended on who he was with at the time. But he did end up with Madame de Maintenon, and she was the daughter's governess. She started out as the daughter's governess, and she was born in a debtor's prison. So she really came up in the world going into King Louis's court
And then to be queen,
and then to be queen.
well, I guess the United States is not the only place where opportunities arise.
Oh, God, no.
I'm also intrigued by the poem with the little girl in the field. Are you
Yeah,
a Navy brat? Is that what inspired that?
oh, yes, I was. but only for 3 years. And that was our backyard in Pensacola, Florida, which had a lot of storms. In fact, there was a hurricane there when I was about 1 or 2. So my mother told me. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the background. The airfield, and my father used to take me to visit airfields because he was in the Navy and he admired the pilots. So he used to take me.
I was going to ask you if your dad was a Blue Angel pilot or.
No, no, he was just in the regular Navy. He was an officer and an ensign, and he uh, just really ad- admired the pilots in the Navy program. So we used to visit the hangars and the places where they trained and practiced and stuff.
So that poem is autobiographical, but the Louis the 14th ones seem to be steeped in history. So where do you fall as a poet? Are they mostly autobiographical, or like what strikes you? How do you pick your topic?
Well, I I really do what just comes out of my gut. Whatever is lurking, I just feel compelled to write about. But they all have elements of autobiography in them, but they're
Mhm.
all very embellished with imagination.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I start with something that's maybe very small in my life, and then I just go crazy with it. I just embellish it and say, what if this happened? And, what would it be if it was like this or like this?
So your first book, is it your first book, Black Wool Cape? Is
Yes,
that also autobiographical, or is that steeped in history? Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
that's historical too. It's the first third is about Israel, which I spent time there when I was young, and then uh, the second parts are just going through life in 40 years. It's a collection of 40 years of life, and from the earliest part to the latter part, and there's all sorts of trials and tribulations in there, madness, adulthood, marriage. you know
So where
uh
does the title come from?
Black Wool Cape comes from one of the poems in the book. It's called Dance with a Black Wool Cape.
Do you have time to read that one? Do you think you'd like to read that one?
Oh, sure. If I have time, sure. Um, let's
Well, we
see.
do have time.
Okay. Uh, okay. Dance with a Black Wool Cape. Last night I struggled with a black wool cape. It gripped me with sleeves of iron and tried to smother my rasping breath. Wildly it flapped, a flag gone off color, and cuffed my startled ears until they begged for silence. Then it rose, shimmering from my shoulders, and floated down narrow Jerusalem streets, whacking on sealed doors. But when I looked away, it returned in a flash and flung itself over my body.
Beautiful poetry. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So so tell us a little bit about that book when you said it was historical. So what is the history that it explores?
Well, there's a little bit of Israeli history. There's a little bit of, I mean, that's the only section where there's a little bit of history, and not that much, actually. Most of it is just coming from my imagination and, you know, with maybe a bit of a scene in there somewhere, and it quickly flows over into just life and growing up and uh, just all sorts of poems are in here. You know, they go from adulthood to not to old age, young adulthood into the like mid 40s.
Okay. So talk to us about the writing life. Like, what is your writing process like? Do you write every day? Do you keep a journal? Um,
Hmm. I I don't write every day. I I write when it's when the writing is really strong, when the feeling of wanting to write is really strong. And I do keep a journal sometimes, although I stopped about 3 or 4 months ago. I stopped writing in my journal and just started writing in this little book, which sort of is helping me work on my second book, a full length book of poems. The poems just started coming, so I went with it.
that sounds pretty inspirational, actually.
Yeah,
When you
I
say
do.
poems just started coming and I went with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. I mean, they start coming and you go with it, and then you go back and you look at it and see if anything's usable, and you sometimes it isn't, and sometimes the things you think that are really usable turn out to be thin air or ashes. And you just keep combing the journal for things you can use.
So talk about when the poems keep coming. What is your writing process then? Do you like write every day during one of those fertile periods? Do you find yourself sort of like in a poetry fever dream, and how do you approach the poetry? How do you approach the work when you're in that one of those fertile periods?
Well, when there's a fertile period, I I just continue to write. I try and limit myself to like no more than 2 hours a day. And usually it's 1 hour. And I continue with just going with the flow, and I just write. And then I have long periods where I'm barren, and I just sort of sit and refuel by reading. Reading is so important, and it's been so important to me.
So talk about some of the things you like to read that inform your life as a writer, fiction, nonfiction, all of it. I mean, some writers say they read medicine, over the counter medicine labels because everything is an inspiration. I've heard that. So what do you read when you are barren?
Oh my gosh. I mainly read poetry, but sometimes I read fiction. Like I sometimes I read short stories, or uh now even more recently I've been reading flash fiction and sudden fiction, and Italo Calvino. I love him.
Hmm.
And the poets I love, I read, and I mentioned them in one poem, but there's Louise Glick, Kim Adonisio, uh, Anne Carson, Mark Strand. I mean, those have been like the bedrock
Hmm.
of, and then I just sort of keep reading. I'm not right now. I'm reading Euripides, the Medea, and it's so modern. It's incredible. All those women just do guilt trips on their sons and their husbands, just like today. You know.
as everything changes, we find it stays the same.
It is, and it's just so, I love it so much, and I usually read several books at a time because right now with computers, your attention span seems to be shorter, but also sometimes I'm in the mood for Euripides, and then I have to stop and say, okay, I'm not in this mood anymore. I want something else. And I'll go to something else. And
Mhm.
some poetry that isn't epic or narrative. And it just, right now I'm being exposed to all sorts of contemporary
Mhm.
poets, and I'm looking at all their formats right now, like how to do erasure poetry and how to do different kinds of poetry that I wouldn't normally be exposed to.
So you're still learning, as many writers are perpetual students, it seems, of the
Absolutely.
work, of the literature, or whatever.
I'm definitely still learning. I'm a beginner, and always there's something new to learn and something new to read and something I haven't had no idea was out there. Um and it's good. It's good to be exposed to that.
Yes, because you get to see how other poets envision their work, and even how they envision things on a page, which is a poem itself, how the words are situated on the page. I think
Yeah,
E. E.
exactly.
Cummings was one of the first people to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, he was. He
So a lot of aspiring writers actually watch this streamed readings. We come on twice a month. Um, and they aspire to be where you are, where you have,
mhm.
a book published, another one forthcoming, um, a couple more in the works. What advice do you give to aspiring writers
Oh my,
to
I don't even know if I'm qualified, but you know what I would say to an aspiring writer? I would say read all you can, and if you want to write poetry, don't let anyone talk you out of it. Do whatever you can. I freelanced my whole life just so I could write poetry in the off hours. Just
so
take a
when you say you
job.
freelanced, you freelanced as a writer or freelanced as a graphic artist? Like,
No, I freelanced as a writer and a fact checker.
okay, so you have, I mean, even though you're freelancing and you're not writing poetry per se, you were writing every day. You were practicing every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, fact checking feeds your brain because you're always learning new things, and writing, any kind of writing like journalism or book reviewing or any of that stuff, feeds your writing abilities.
Hmm.
So you're always learning, and you always have that free time to write poetry. And that's what I would say. And I would also say to somebody who's young and just starting out, or some people are starting out when they're older now.
Hmm.
Um, I would say just don't give up. You're going to get a lot of rejections, but the more you submit, the more they're going to know who you are, and the more you'll have a chance at getting an acceptance. Because it took me years, years to get encouragement from uh, magazines that were widely read, and even now I can literally count where I've been published on one hand, or two, maybe two hands. It takes a long time. You have to stick with it, and you can't give up. And sometimes you do give up. Like I had a very bad bout uh, of madness, and I just sunk so low, and I didn't think I was ever going to get out of it, but I did. And you just can't give up.
That's very astute and very profound advice. Perseverance. I forget who said it. I don't know if it was one of the presidents or something, but they
Mm-hmm.
said perseverance is the key to success because geniuses are everywhere, but they don't do anything with their lives. I forget, it's a pretty long saying. There are musical geniuses everywhere, but if they don't practice and persevere, then the world is filled with literary, musical, scientific geniuses, but if they don't persevere, then there's nothing.
I think
There's
that's
nothing.
true to some extent, because to them it comes easy and they don't have to struggle. So they kind of say, well, I don't have to work on this. I'll just let it slide and do something else that interests me right now. And I'm not saying all people with a lot of talent are like that. Some of them do work very hard.
Well,
And
that's the perseverance.
yeah, that's the perseverance. It's like it's 95% sweat and 5% inspiration and talent. And that's just how it works.
I think it works like that for just about every endeavor that has an artistic focus. That it's 95% sweat and 5% inspiration, no matter what you try.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
that is a very inspiring thing to actually end on, the inspiration. Our next reading is July 1, and same time, 8:30 Eastern time and 5:30 Pacific time. I hope everybody who's listening today will join in again on July 1st. And thank you so much for sharing your poetry with us, Allison. It's
Thank
exquisite
you.
poetry. Anybody who wants to buy the book can get a 20% off when they buy it from Unsolicited Press's website, and they put in the code Literary Nights to get that 25%. So thank you all for joining. Allison Sussman, thank you for sharing your beautiful poetry with us and for your inspirational and words for aspiring writers.
Thank you so much, Rosaria.
This was a fun night. This was a really inspiring and fun night.
Glad. I'm glad.
Thank
I'm
you for
glad.
sharing your work, and
Oh,
thanks for joining us for the people out there. All right, good night.
good night. Let's see. How do I